Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 154.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on true custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. I create exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores. It's been a few years since I did a podcast interview that had a focus on the AimPoint Express green reading technique developed by Mark Sweeney. Simply said, it works. And knowing how to correctly read greens is one of the most important, and some say most important, putting skills you need to make more putts. So today, enjoy listening to Ollie Leett, creator of the Leett Putting Hub in Gorsley, United Kingdom. Since Ollie's had more than 700 successes teaching AimPoint Express to golfers of all playing abilities, I think he's a pretty credible person to share some of his insights on the value of reading greens using the AimPoint Express green reading process. Enjoy this interview with Ollie Leett.
www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Hello and good morning. This is Tony Wright with episode 154 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. And I'm excited today for all of you to learn from a friend I met, I think about 3 years ago at Flat Stick Conference, Ollie Leett, a putting instructor and creator of the Leett Putting Hub at the Tim Hall School of Golf in, I believe it's Gorsley, the United Kingdom. Ollie actually is, in fact, the complete putting solution. As he says on his site, he is a level 2 flat stick instructor, a level 3 AimPoint instructor, and that's a lot what we'll talk about today. Does Sam Putt Lab, and I believe fits putters, and like he said, the complete putting solution. But the most interesting thing I think about you, Ollie, is you are determined to be the best you. You don't let anything stand in your way of that happening. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking. You know, it's been quite a while since I've talked with some people about AimPoint, so it's going to be great to hear from you today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Tony. And very much excited to see where the conversations go today.
Yeah. Well, talk a little bit to tell my listeners a bit about your golf story. What brought you to golf, in particular, to be a golf instructor and putting instructor?
Sure, yeah, no problem at all, Tony. So, I started golf at a very young age, just in the house, and I had plastic clubs, and my dad played. And then my uncle played at the local golf course called Penhorse Golf Club in Aberystwyth, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And so he played there, and he took me on the 9-holer a few times when I was a kid, 7, 8 years of age. And then I joined the club when I was 11 and sort of went from there, really, got straight into it and absolutely loved it. The golf club is a fantastic place. The course is beautiful. The club is great, really friendly. And we were fortunate. We had a group of us that was like 4 or 5 of us, and we all were similar levels, and we bounced off each other, and we had putting competitions after putting competition after putting competition. So we just played, as kids do, 72 holes a day through the summer, and got good pretty quick. And I got to a 3 handicap when I was 15. I got into the Welsh squad. Not the team, unfortunately, been to the Welsh squad under 16s. And from there, I sort of plateaued a little bit with my golf. obviously when you get to that age, you start meeting other interests such as driving cars and women and drinking. So I'm not.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that golf was the main priority. I was enjoying life and loving life, and but I always had a sort of big interest in helping others on the golf course. So although I was one of the kids, I was still better than most of the members, and I used to love helping them. And I helped the local pro do sort of some junior coaching, and I knew that I wasn't going to be good enough to play golf for a career, but I knew I wanted to help golfers, and I loved that. And that's when I was 21. I decided to sort of start looking down the PGA avenue, looking for job interviews all over the UK. So I actually went for 13 interviews, and the first 12 were not successful. And I often look back, and I think you mentioned in the bio, which was very kind, or in the launch there, that I quite determined. I don't know where that comes from really, but I had 12 interviews and 12 failures, and I still went to that 13th interview in Cheltenham with Harry at Lillybrook Golf Club, and that was 10 years ago now, and he gave me the job and gave me the opportunity to train under him, and I had three happy years there learning my trade under a great professional. So that's the sort of start of the journey, really.
There's always failure involved in success, if there's any real success, isn't there?
Absolutely.
I'm sure anybody you've talked to, you'll find that. So,
yeah, for sure.
You talked about, as a kid. Now, I built my own little kind of golf course in my neighborhood. Some of the people around probably never liked it, but I put tin cans in some of the yards around. and I made a little golf club. I had an old metal shaft, and I still have a little cut on my thumb that I'm looking at right now from when I kind of jammed the edge of the shaft into my hand and cut my finger. But
funny.
But I put a wood shaft on it. I don't even remember if I had a golf grip, but somehow I made a club, and I would go around and hit the ball in the hole. That was a start, but it must have been, things like Arnold Palmer and things like that at that time that kind of got me going. Well,
sure.
I love the name of your business, the Leett Putting Hub. I don't know if I've heard anybody else that talks about their sort of overall arching organization being a hub, but it's perfect. And why particular putting for you? And a little bit about how you landed at the Tim Hall School of Golf.
For sure, yeah, that's no problem, Tony. And I was just thinking yourself, building golf clubs there. You were a club builder back in the day, right? Before you even knew. That's pretty cool.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so going on from Lillybrook, I was there doing my training for 3 years, and I moved to Ross and Wye Golf Club, which is where I am now in Gorsley, as you mentioned earlier. So that's where the Tim Hall School of Golf is. So that's 7.5 years ago, and at the time, Tim had just won Foremost Professional of the Year. So Foremost is a buying group in the UK, and there's 1,000 members, and he just won number one. So I messaged him on Twitter and said, look, in short terms, I said, like, you're the best. I want to be the best. So you are going to employ me. Kind of how the conversation went. I'm sure Tim will say it didn't quite go like that.
Yeah.
But I came over to Ross and met him, and Tim was, or still is, hugely influential in sort of where I've got to today by, from the start, he was very keen on me setting up my own business, creating my own unique sort of coaching style and what I wanted to specialize in. And, he helped me a lot with building the brand. It was almost a brand before I had a product. And then, so putting was just an easy option. I as a kid, we spent hours and hours playing for golf balls, putting comps, chipping and putting. I just love putting, and obviously thought there's not many putting instructors around. So that's sort of the route I went down, really. So it was quite a easy decision, really. It wasn't like I had to make a decision. It was quite natural. That's what I want to do, and that's what I still love doing every day. Is I just want to give putting lessons and help people hold more putts more often.
But the putting around and just putting and putting and putting, and you know, I'm sure you listen, you know, to our friend David Orr, and he talks about Brad Faxon, and he says all the time that he just loves putting and just loves watching the ball roll and seeing what happens. You know, as far along as he is in his golfing career, he still loves that. And so anybody that truly loves putting, I think, gets into that kind of mode of just enjoying getting a little better and learning from it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about, right? It's just having fun. And I listened to your previous podcast from Gavin Parker, who we both are good friends with, and Gavin Flo. He's just a mad, crazy man, and he's just just an absolute legend. And you can't, when you spend time with Gavin, you cannot not have a good time. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but I know what I'm trying to say. You just got to love life when you're with him, and every time you do, it's a little bit, you don't know what's going to come next, so you're a bit on edge in a nice way, that it's all exciting. So yeah, for me, putting it's got to be that way. And even if it's like tour players or kids who you're coaching, I still try and make it fun and get them, hitting the David Orr backhander hit. Have you seen that shot? See David Orr hit that I don't know what he calls it, but he puts the putter through his legs and hits a putt sort of behind him.
I don't know that I've seen that. I'm going to have to ask him about that. So
you've definitely got to ask him about that. He's pretty good at putting. So he basically puts the putter in between his legs and the ball's behind his heels. Yeah. And he does a stroke in between his legs and hits the ball down like 20 foot, and he can make them. He can still make. Yeah. He's got crazy skills.
We haven't, I don't know that in any of the certification classes he's gotten out on the putting green and shown us that one. Doggone it. So maybe next time. Yeah. You'll
have to ask him for that. Yeah. It's a good one.
Well, what originally drew you to AimPoint green reading, and I guess particularly now AimPoint Express, and, you're up there, right? I mean, you're a level 3 instructor. I don't know how many in Europe, but probably less than 10. Any particular stories too about, I think, I've interviewed Jamie and Mark a couple of times, and those have been delightful interviews, but how you originally connected with them to really get into AimPoint.
Yeah, sure. No problem. It was an interesting one where, obviously, when I started the putting business, I started looking at, the 3 skills of putting. You've got to read the green, you've got to start the ball on line, and you've got to hit the ball the right distance and get the speed right. So how do we teach reading greens? And I sort of thought about what I did, and I couldn't really describe what I did. Plumb bobbing, nobody's ever told me what they're doing there. To any good answer. So I was struggling to find a way to teach reading greens. So a little bit of research, found Jamie and AimPoint Golf, and I was very fortunate at the time. This must be about 6 years ago now, where AimPoint Express was just being born. So AimPoint, Mark started with AimPoint as a product on telly, where he used to scan the greens, and he had the code to work out the line on every putt, and it was highly successful, 99% success rate, and he won an Emmy Award, and it was amazing. From there, he created the AimPoint chart, which a lot of golfers used and enjoyed because it was a process. The only sort of downside to the chart was there were quite a few variables, and it did take a bit of time to do. It took a lot of practice to get good at it quickly. So golfers sort of started using it, and then they'd come away from it. So Mark and Jamie and John Graham, I think in the early days, started messing around with thumbs for kids. So like they were holding up just their thumb to give the kids an idea, and the AimPoint Express read was born. So that's when Jamie was the only instructor in the UK, and he thought, well, perhaps we should get a few more instructors around the UK. And it just happened to be at the right time, the right place at the right time that I asked him. And I know he had over 100 people asking, and you'd have to ask him why he why he gave me the job out of those 100 people. But there we are. So I was very fortunate to give him the opportunity by Jamie, and from there met Mark. Spent quite a lot of time with those guys over in Spain the last few 5 years, and just learned a hell of a lot from them. And since then, I've got 700 students through AimPoint. As you've said, evolved into a level 2, into a level 3 coach, and just absolutely love coaching. I must say, Tony, the AimPoint is the best thing. I absolutely love coaching AimPoint because it is just my favorite part of coaching, because every single lesson, we've always got a couple of skeptical guys in there, and, I can't feel slope, or it's not for me. But every single one, 20 minutes in, there's like this aha moment, and it's like, oh my God, the penny drops. It's like, boom, and they're like, oh my God, this works. And it's like, yes. And for me as a coach, that's the best feeling, because I'm like, boom, I know I've transferred them, and they're loving it, they're buzzing, I'm buzzing, and the rest of the class just flies by, and we just have such a ball, such a laugh, and have so much fun with it, right? Which is what it's all about, is having fun, as we mentioned earlier. So I just love it, coaching.
Yeah. Well, before we go on here, just a little extra kind of question too. What's a little bit, like maybe in 1 minute, the difference between a level 3 and a level 2 AimPoint instructor? What's sort of the next level of the things that you have to know when you do that? Kind of curious.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So my understanding is that a level 3 coach needs to coach tour players. They've got to put a certain amount of students, got to coach, got to put a certain amount of players through AimPoint and go to regular coaching or training sessions with Mark and Jamie, promote the brand in the right way, and be active on social media. And just be part of the development. And you can pretty much coach wherever you want as a level 3 coach as well. I think there's limitations for level 1 and 2. Within reason, level 3 can kind of go anywhere, as long as you don't, it's courtesy to let other instructors know if you're going close to them, but gives you a little bit more freedom to coach kind of where you like.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Give a few minutes of an overview about what an AimPoint green reading class looks like.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So the topics covered in the 2-hour class is that you feel slope. You learn how to feel slope. We work on short putts, mid putts, long putts, double breaking putts. We personally calibrate the individual. We show them how to adjust for the speed of the greens, and anything else really we can think of during that session we can help them with. So how AimPoint works itself is it's a feel-based read, and you go to the middle section of a putt and you feel slope with your feet. At this point, I think a lot of golfers get concerned that they can't feel slope, and I can sort of hands up and honestly say that all 700 students that I've coached can feel slope. Everyone can feel a difference between a big slope, a little slope, and zero slope. And a big slope is a 4% slope, a little slope is a 2% slope, and zero obviously has no break. And every single one can feel slope. That you've got to find the best way for you, for sure. And then what you're doing there is you feel the slope and give it a value, and that value represents the amount of fingers you use to show you how much break is going to happen. So if it's a 4% slope, you'd use 4 fingers, a big slope, and 4 fingers to the side of the hole would give you the amount of break that's going to happen over that putt. And Tony, it just gives players so much confidence on making that decision on where to aim. A lot of golfers will stand over a putt and say, I'm aiming over here-ish, somewhere over there, like right edge over there somewhere, like they're not making a decision. And for me, you need to have that clarity in your mind exactly where your aim point is to start with. From there, you need to visualize what a good putt looks like and transfer that message from your brain to your hands to work out what size of stroke you need to hit the ball that far. So it's a start point of your pre-shot routine, really, which is you need to pick that aim point. You need to know where to aim that ball to or aim that club to. So aim point just gives players that confidence on making a decision. I say to golfers, look, it doesn't matter if you get the decision right or wrong. The key thing is to make a decision.
Rather than just, well, it's sort of nebulous out there, right? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. As long as you make a decision, sorry. No, that's okay. Go ahead. As long as you go ahead.
I was just going to say, as long as golfers make a decision on where they're aiming, hit the putt on that line or try and hit the ball along that line at the right speed, and then they learn from their mistakes. So I like my golfers to ask themselves, 3 good questions. Did the ball start on my intended line? Did it break like I expected it to? And how was the speed? If they learn from their mistakes, and they're going to get better and evolve as human beings and as putters, and that's all we can ask for, really.
Do you ever, you talked about plumb bobbing, mentioned it a little bit. Do you ever let people, ask guys in the class and say, hey, do you plumb bob and what's your read? Or even say, well, if you're kind of just looking at the line, which a lot of people do, right, rather than feeling it with their feet, they kind of look and say, what? Do you ever sort of get them to compare those 2 or 3 methods in a class and or with people and show them, how far off they probably are in terms of what the read is? Yeah, sometimes, for sure. I think, most people can't tell you what they're doing when they're plumb bobbing. So, what I think they potentially are doing is feeling slope where they're stood, and how much the shaft tilts gives them an indication. I think it gives them indication where they're aiming, like right or left, and maybe a small value, but they very rarely can tell you exactly where they're aiming anyway. So obviously it depends on speed as well. So, the amount of break will certainly change depending on the speed you're going to play the putt, but they can't tell you. So I don't really go into too much conversations about it, because they don't really know what they're doing, if I'm being totally honest. I've not met someone who can really tell me what they're doing during plumb bobbing. Yeah. I haven't seen, I don't see as much plumb bobbing anymore, to tell you the truth. I can't remember the last time I've seen it watching a tour event, that's for sure. Yeah, I definitely can't remember either. I think a lot of golfers, when you ask them, like, what are you doing there? They said, like, they're doing it because they think they should do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're doing it because they look good. It's like practice swings. People do practice swings because they think they should do a practice swing. No, not many golfers know what's the purpose of a practice swing. You said something about 4 or 5 minutes ago I thought that was really, really cool, though, that sort of snuck in. And that is that golfers really should, no matter what, make an absolute determination of what their line is going to be. So now with AimPoint, when they have it, they have a process that after a class they really know works. They make that determination and they are very committed to that. And then they just can learn from it rather than simply going out there and say, well, it sort of looks like this. It's kind of this way. I hit the putt. I go to the next hole, and nothing, particularly with golfers that are very committed to getting good, right? They don't have a way for really learning from every putt. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, absolutely. And, I think golfers, our role as coaches is to help golfers declutter. We don't need to give them more information. We've got plenty of information out there. We need to just declutter and get rid of the crap, and let's help them make good decisions, set up, hit the putt, and learn from their mistakes. And I try and keep it that simple with all level of golfers, really. What now, as you've been through 700 people and all the training and stuff, what do you see as the biggest myths about green reading that golfers have, and what AimPoint does to, demythify or whatever, demystify these myths?
Sure. So the first thing that I would say is it increases players' probability of having an accurate read. So I did a study a couple of years ago for 200 students that I asked them, and it is a guess, but that I was getting them to guess how many putts out of 100 or out of 10 they can read correctly before the class, and the average answer was around 50%. So golfers thought that they read the green 50% were good and 50% were bad. And after the class, I asked them, and the average answer was 84%. So, if 1/3 of putting is green reading and 84% of these students after doing AimPoint, it's a pretty high percentage to get most of your reads correct. So that would be the first thing. The next one would be that they underread putts. Most golfers underread putts. Again, another study I did, it typically came out to be 66%. Players tend to play about 66% of break that they need to play. And as you know, Tony, if you're going to play a putt at 66% of the total break, you've got to hit that thing pretty firm, which it ain't going to have a chance of going in anyway. And then the last one I would say is when we come down to visualization, a lot of golfers believe that the ball goes straight for the majority of the way, and then it curls considerably at the end. And as you know, Tony, it definitely breaks quite a lot in that first 2/3, and it does break in the last third as well. But it's it's more of a curve, continuous curve, rather than sort of straight line for 80% and then breaks a lot of the hole.
Yeah. So, as you said, you've taught a lot of people, a lot of young, you've even done interviews with, we'll get back to that a little later, with some younger golfers who are really motivated and tour level golfers. Are there any significant differences in, their ability and mindset to embrace the express process? And if so, why do you think those differences happen?
It's an interesting one.
Do the young guys just immediately, because they're just not less locked in, just go for it right away compared to people that have done things for a long time? Or
sure, yeah. I honestly don't change the process a lot for tour levels to 8-year-olds to non-golfers. I coach beginner golfers who come for their first ever putting lesson. They'll learn AimPoint. Tour players come in for a putting for an AimPoint session, same thing. And 8-year-olds the same thing. The concept is that simple. It's stand halfway, give it a value. Is it a big, little, or no slope? And your fingers represent that. With some of the sort of 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they'll still feel slope, and I'll say, which way are you falling over? And if they're falling over to the right, I'll then say, where are you going to aim? And they're like, well, I'm going to aim left, or over there where they point, which is normally left. And I'll say, great, okay, hit it left. So at least they're getting the idea of feeling slope early on. So to be honest with you, Tony, the answer is I don't change a lot. The concept is that simple. It's, my partner doesn't play golf, and we've sort of been on the golf course, and I've taught her AimPoint. She reads the greens as good as I do, but she doesn't play golf.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
That's pretty neat, which shows, the robustness of it. Any other things before we go on about AimPoint that you want to say, or even, any particularly great story about embracing AimPoint that you want to talk about? I threw this one in. This is the hooker question, right? There should always be something you don't set up right away, but there you go.
Yeah. We've had some good times over in Spain with Mark and Jamie, and the one that jumped to mind there was one day on the early days was Mark was going up to the golf club, and I think he was going to coach a guy called Rocco Mediate.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was him. I could be completely wrong. Is he Spanish?
Well, he's not, but I know he's from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. Actually, I think he's Italian, but that's okay if you missed that. That's fine.
It might not be him, but it was a tall player who's now on the seniors tour. And Mark was going to give him an individual lesson. And I always remember me saying to Mark, like the boys were in the bar, and I said, "Mark, can I come with you and watch?" And we went up to the course, and I had 2 hours of watching him coach a tall player early on, and that day I always will remember, as a great day of learning, but the thing that sticks out is me and Mark would drive along the road, and this dude come on this like Harley Davidson bike, like pulled alongside us and looked at us in the car. And then I don't know if it's a Harley, man, because he floored it and he did this big wheelie and he drove off like 100 yards down the road doing a wheelie past us. And we just looked at each other, never seen anything like it, and laughed our heads off, like all the way to the golf course for about half an hour. That'll just be not AimPoint related in green reading, but just a moment with Mark that was just like you'll never forget, as well as watching him coach a tall player, which was pretty special.
I got to actually, early on in the Express Reads stuff, I got to see Mark teach it at the PGA show. And cool. Boy, he can putt too, can he?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he rolls it. So it always amazed me. I mean, he could lock into a putt and getting the read and making it, and kind of almost out of the box. I still remember some of the putts he made when he was, and in fact, some double breakers when we were there. Pretty neat. Yeah.
He's pretty good with his foot as well. He can like roll the ball, kick the ball with his foot. Like he puts the ball under his foot and he sort of rolls it, and he's pretty as good at that as well. Like nearly as good as he is at putting.
Well, we've talked a lot about green reading things, but what other part of putting skill development, do you most enjoy in terms of teaching? Obviously, you said AimPoint is kind of number one, but what sort of stands out next in terms of anything in particular?
For me, I enjoy the journey with the player. So a player comes for a lesson and it's trying to figure out the puzzle, trying to figure out them as a human, trying to understand their skills, trying to understand their mental state, their biases, their tendencies, how they visualize, and then how they practice, and then start to sort of put it all together. And that's where the David Orr flat stick template I use on a daily basis, still do. I've got hundreds printed off in the putting hub, and I almost every new lesson I will use that template just to make sure I get the big picture. And what's exciting for me is putting that puzzle together and understanding, seeing how they link, looking at their putters, it helping or hurting, and putting it all together. That part is the part I love. Is just helping golfers and seeing them evolve, tracking their stats on Spider Putt, Spider Golf.
Are you using Spider Golf a lot with people too?
Spider Putt, yeah, absolutely.
Spider Putt, yeah.
With for me, it's just the best training aid out there for practicing. So I use it a lot on practicing for my students, because on the flat stick combine, the first thing you go to, it'll tell you the putt you've got to go and find. So it helps golfers with their green reading skills, because whoever has been on the putting green and you've got to go and find a 2% right to left 8-foot putt, like you've got to stop and think about that. So it helps golfers find that. But then also it helps you track the results. So you start to understand players' patterns, short or long or left or right. And you start to see their patterns on different lengths of putts. You see the patterns on different breaking putts. So that's where that matches up beautifully with their face change on Sam, or their push bias or pull bias on Sam, and see how that relates to actual real life on breaking putts. So that's really cool. So for me, it's dead cheap. I think in the UK it's £19 for the year for Spider Putt, and you can't buy a lot for £19 these days, and it's just a complete steal. And good friend Cedric Dennis has created something pretty special there, and he's evolving it every day as well. So go and check it out, everyone.
Yeah, it's another amazing person. I had dinner with him at the PGA show at the the Preston Combs dinner, right? Preston Combs dinner, right? And
nice.
It was what a delight. I mean, you talk about somebody that is just all in about what he's doing. He's another person that's like that. So
he's crazy passionate. Did he have some nice red wine in dinner?
I can't remember what he drank, but I know I think he did. In fact, now that I really visualize that back, so. Yep.
Me and Cedric love a glass of red wine together, especially when he gets his fancy French stuff out. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, this has been excellent today. I know you looked forward to it, so did I, and you shared a lot of great things. Any particular final words that you want to share related to helping golfers make more putts, and also a little bit about your podcast, which is really neat. Read it, roll it, and hole it. And you've had some fabulous guests on it.
Well, thank you, Tony, and I've thoroughly enjoyed today. It's been a blast, and I've really enjoyed it. The podcast. Let me come back to the podcast. What's my parting words to the guys and girls, is if you've got someone will have AimPoint instructor close to them, get in contact. If you go on the AimPoint website, get in contact, go and do an AimPoint class. It's £100 in the UK. Not sure how much it is. It varies slightly across the world, but it'll be the best £100 you ever spend, because everyone, of the 700, everyone said that they've improved, even if it's just a tool for their toolbox. So, learn AimPoint Express. It is such a tool to have. And then spend another £20 on Spider Putt. And that's a great start. So that would be my advice, is to spend 120 quid on those two things. Be decisive in making a decision, and learn from your mistakes, and you'll be golden.
And now a little bit about the podcast too. So, and I'm gonna, yeah.
Okay, so during lockdown, for a couple of years, I've listened to your podcast and many podcasts, and I thoroughly enjoy them. And I've always sort of wanted to do a podcast, just because intriguing really. And so during lockdown, I had that opportunity, and I've set one up. So I think I'm 10 episodes in now. And we're getting some good guests on, and just some good conversations like today, Tony. It's just a joy to speak to people and share information, and hopefully help others, other golfers listening, and other coaches maybe listening, and just share our knowledge. I think sometimes the golf industry could be quite closed, and people say, oh, I'm not sharing my information with him, and let's not, it can be a bit of we need to help each other, man, and just share the love. So that's what I love doing with the podcast. So yeah, it's good fun. It's
definitely one that the people that totally get into putting ought to be listened to. There's no question. Well,
totally. We try and get it. We try and make it putting, specific. Tony, I'm interviewing you now, but why do you do your podcast? What drives you to keep going 160 episodes in, or whatever you are?
Boy, and it gets a little tough sometimes to keep kind of churning them out with people. It's just that I'm just interested in sharing things that people don't know. That can help people. I always have loved golf. Golf kind of created my life outside of golf. I got a scholarship in undergraduate school related to golf and being a caddy. And I came back to golf, probably when I was, 1986, because I hadn't done it for a long time. And I enjoy attempting to get better. I enjoy particularly helping people understand some of the myths of things that they don't know that can hurt them. And it's also been fun to just contact somebody that you don't know and say, hey, are you interested in doing this? Because I've never been afraid to do that. And they say, sure, let's do it.
Sure.
And you get to do an interview with somebody that's just fascinating and interesting and that can share something that that people get value from. So that's what drives me.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think you're a lot like that too. You love getting to learn from people and sharing and talking with them. So
yeah, absolutely. That's how we connected, right?
yeah, that's right. Well, very good, Ollie. As always, I'll put links in the show notes to, where to find you, but I'm also going to put links. I hadn't thought about this before. I should again put links to, AimPoint and also to Spider Putt, which quite frankly, I haven't done as much with as I should. And, maybe Cedric, I need to get on and do an interview with him sometime, which would be fun. But it has
Definitely
been a great experience today. And look, we're going to get you, as we're recording it, it's almost 7:50 Eastern time. And in about 10 minutes, you're going to be on the lesson tee with, I think 9 people today, right? So you got a busy day.
Yep, full day coaching now, and it's actually pretty warm. So cake on the sun cream and go out there and do what. Happy day. It's not a proper job, is it? It's 9 hours of fun, really. Not and just very fortunate they're going to hopefully give me some money afterwards as well.
There you go. Well, you have a great day doing that. Hang in for a second after I turn the button off. And again, thank you for doing this with me today.
No problem. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Tony.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf. Tony creates exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Thanks, Ollie. I have been looking forward to getting to talk with you and bringing you listeners this interview for a long time. I've included links in the show notes to where you can reach Ollie at the Leett Putting Hub, to where you can learn more about AimPoint Express and find instructors in your area, and to the amazing Spider Putt putting training app that we talked about in the interview. My shout out today is to one of my long-term golf shaft providers, Aldala Golf. In particular, Steve Gandolfo at Alda has been a great help to me. I use Aldala shafts in my present fitting system with the Washan 919 driver, and now also as I'm expanding to fit with the new Crank Formula 11 driver heads. Thanks, Steve and Aldala. Well, that's it for today. I keep saying this, but I am really excited to welcome John Pannone, new owner of Spargo Golf in Rhode Island, to share his insights with you about true custom club fitting. John is one very busy guy, and I am glad he'll take the time to share what's happening at Spargo Golf, one of the top club fitting centers in the world. See you in 2 weeks. Stay safe.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com